Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgette Vignonfodo. Tonight, extreme flooding in southern Africa's submerged towns left townspeople at the mercy of crocodiles and the risk of cholera. Scientists say that climate change will make supercharged rainfall more likely in the years to come. A crisis that ironically also makes it harder to guarantee access to clean water. We hear from Mozambique's WaterAid country director. Also, healthcare fraud undermines Kenya's already fragile system. The government says it's lost out on around 71 million euros from fraudulent claims by suspect health institutions. And for the first time in the history of Beninese cycling, an 18-year-old hits the road but then heads off to take up her journey up a gear with training in Switzerland in the hope of leading the way for more of the continent's female cyclists. We go to meet this pack leader. But first, Zambia's capital's been hit hard by heavy flooding. People living in Lusaka have had to wade through knee-high water on Thursday after neighborhoods were inundated by heavy rain. The country is just one of many in the region that is currently struggling with similar fallout from unusually intense downpours. More than 200 people have been killed in the extreme weather that swept across southern Africa over the last month, affecting Mozambique, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Eswatini. For more on all of this, I'm now joined by WaterAid's Dr. Gaspar Sitefane, the director for Mozambique, where more than 500,000 people have been affected by the flooding. Gaspar, thank you so much for making the time to speak to me. Now, first of all, a lot of the emergency workers in the region are saying that the impact of this flooding is worse than they've ever seen. You work with WaterAid. What are your teams on the ground telling you about what's happening where they are?
Thank you for having me here. Good evening, everyone. Well, these are the worst floods I have ever seen. Villages, homes, trees are completely underwater. And even main highways, bridges are cut off. Crocodile sightings, people displaced, are being evacuated by helicopters where it's possible, or by boats from trees, from roofs, and we'll find mothers giving birth to babies on the roof of houses. So, although, and for other hand, although rainfalls stopped for now, emergence continues. It's important to remember that Mozambique is particularly vulnerable, is waters are coming from other countries, the neighboring countries is South Africa, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and others, and the waters are heading to the sea. And on their way, they take whatever they find in between. So recovering from these floods will be a major challenge for Mozambique. And that's what scares a lot, because we are seeing this extreme weather more and more often now. Instead, in the past, it was not that much as now. But in 2023, we had floods, and we are having it again, so it's more frequently.
That must be really terrifying, because you're not only dealing with the immediate, but also the prospect of this happening more and more. But, when it comes to the challenges you're currently facing, I know that WaterAid, you've launched an appeal. When there's so much to do, what are your priorities to get over the most immediate hurdles?
Well, for us, strengthening water and sanitation systems are the first line of defense in this kind of emergency. So it's why we as WaterAid, we have stepped in and to provide life-saving hygiene kits, to distribute water purification tablets, and also aiming to repair critical water and hygiene services that are damaged. You can imagine with these floods, almost all boreholes are infected. So we need to work hard to make sure that people will have clean water, and in that sense, to save them from diseases like malaria, like cholera, and others. So, and for that, we need help. That's why we as Support Aid, we have launched an emergency appeal to raise funds to support these communities that are in need now and today. And if you are able, you can support by donating at whataid.org/floods.
Thank you so much, Gasper. But, so looking ahead, scientists say that climate change triggered by the burning of fossil fuels means that this will just keep happening, which ironically means it's harder to access clean water. What would you like to see happen when it comes to the region's governments factoring in access to water in their climate change adaptation plans?
Well, firstly, I think that this is happening as aid budgets are being cut, which is a shame, because making emergency fund slower and smaller and even far less certain, it will make much more difficult for countries like Mozambique, and particularly in a time that this kind of floods or extreme events like cyclones and dry seasons are becoming more intense and more frequent. So, and for other hand also, emergency relief and long-term climate finance is needed to strengthen the water and sanitation service, which is our first line of defense, as I said before. And there, protecting health facilities, preventing diseases, outbreaks are for sure one of the first points to start with. And just to finalize, we definitely need to have financing. Otherwise, countries like Mozambique will continue in need for more and more years.
Thank you so much for talking us through the work that you and other organisations like yours are trying to do to help communities caught up in some pretty devastating flooding in southern Africa. Gasper Sitifani there, country director for Mozambique. Well, in Kenya, the Ministry of Health says that around 71 million euros, or the equivalent of that, has been stolen, misdirected or fraudulently claimed by hospitals and other healthcare facilities, manipulating a new social security system that had been meant to modernise the old system in a way that could mean more Kenyans could access better health insurance. But it apparently hasn't quite worked out that way. Our Bastien Renouy tells us more.
It was supposed to be a highly secured system designed to prevent fraud. But a little over a year after its launch, it's now clear that the Social Health Authority, also known as SHA here in Kenya, was not so secure after all. 11 billion shillings, it's 71 million euros, were siphoned off during the first 6 months of the new social health scheme. Shortly after its launch, Kenyan media were reporting about massive frauds, but the scale of the fraud was unknown until now. It's now clear that many ghost hospitals were charging for fake interventions and that real ones were also taking advantage of the new scheme. According to the Ministry of Health, maternity services were the most targeted. The Minister of Health said that several hospitals were charging for 100% of deliveries as C-sections, while others were charging for C-sections even though they do not have the equipment necessary to perform this surgery. According to the Ministry of Health, 1,118 facilities have been shut down because of these frauds. And I can tell you that before these announcements, Kenyans were already criticizing SHA for its lack of efficiency. It's now clear that this new announcement will further damage its image.
That breakdown by our Bastien Renouy. Look now at some news in brief. A collision involving a minibus, taxi and a truck killed at least 11 people in South Africa on Thursday near the city of Durban in eastern KwaZulu-Natal province. At least one child was amongst the victims. Now, the accident happened just days after a deadly head-on crash between a minibus being used to transport school children and a truck in another province in the country. In Ethiopia, clashes between regional and national forces have raised fears of renewed fighting that has sent ripples throughout society. Ethiopian Airlines, has cancelled flights to the northern region of Tigray, and people living there rushed to try to withdraw as much cash as they could from banks 4 years after a 2-year civil war that came to an end in 2022. But earlier this week, reports were beginning to emerge of more confrontation in western Tigray. And Senegal head coach Papa Thiaw has been banned for 5 matches as part of a host of sanctions that followed the Africa Cup of Nations chaotic final. Now, he'd ordered his players to leave the field in stoppage time after tournament hosts Morocco were awarded a penalty in the January 18th match in Rabat. Now, it was delayed for 17 minutes before Senegal finally returned to the field. The bans apply only to Africa Games and not the World Cup, which kicks off in June, that Senegal and Morocco have both qualified for. In total, Senegal and Morocco face more than $1 million in fines and bans following the dramatic AFCON showdown. Now, it's a first in the history of Beninese cycling. She's just 18, but Georgette Vignonfodo is heading off-road of Benin to take up her journey up a gear with training in Switzerland. She's hoping to lead the way for more of the continent's female cyclists. Our team went to meet her.
They've already clocked up 2 hours on the road from Porto Novo. Along the Route des Pêches near Cotonou, the peloton keeps pushing on. Among them is 18-year-old Georgette Vignonfodo. On the 2nd of February, she will head to Switzerland after being selected to join the UCI World Cycling Center, an elite development program run by the International Cycling Union. It is a major milestone for her and a powerful signal to other young cyclists.
It motivates us to keep pushing and give our best.
In this mixed peloton, women are still in the minority, but they're steadily claiming their place.
She's ambitious, she knows what she wants, and it makes us want to help her all the way.
Out on the road, Georgette Vignonfodo's determination stands out.
Right now, the wind and the heat are my biggest challenges.
She draws her inspiration from the sport's very best. Tadej Pogačar among the men, and Demi Vollering, a global reference in mountain racing among the women.
Once she heads to Switzerland, she'll go straight into a high-altitude training camp.
Because taking the next step means more competition and exposure to the highest level.
Since 1960, she's been the first to go beyond the national level and join a continental team under the UCI.
A first of its kind, changing what is considered possible.
You're on your way to becoming a great champion, opening the door for other riders.
On her indoor trainer, these are the final training sessions before flying to Europe and taking it to the next level.
My biggest challenge once I'm there is to work better with the team and to learn from others.
That is precisely the role of the center preparing to welcome her in Switzerland. Coaching, close monitoring and competition. The UCI World Cycling Center prepares young talents for international circuits.
That is, though, all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.